Ari Lewis Show.
Welcome, everybody, to another episode of the Ari Lewis Show on Israel Sports News Radio. Thank you for joining us. At any time, you can email the program, arilewishow@hotmail.com, or email the station, israelsportsnewsradio@gmail.com. And if you like what you're hearing and want to support the station, go over to the right side of this website and click on the Donate tab. A lot of interesting tales to be told regarding Canada. On the line right now is Israel Sports News Radio's North America correspondent. Back to the program, Ann Stoffel. Leslie, how you doing out there?
I'm great, Ari. How are you?
Doing wonderful. I'm not doing as wonderful reading some of the comments regarding your Prime Minister, Justin Trudeau, during International Holocaust Remembrance Day. Remembrance Day, he did not mention Jews at all, which is kind of shocking to hear that. Tell us a bit about that story.
Yeah, this is really shocking to me too, and to a lot of people. And you know, Ari, I just have to say, this really, really hits me right in the heart, because it's for us to be in a spot like this with a prime minister like this, it is totally astonishing. Because when I was a teenager and I found out about the Holocaust, I was so incensed. And I said to myself back then, if anything like that should ever happen again, I'm going to be speaking out about it. And so here I am speaking out about it, and here I am with a prime minister like this. It feels like I've fallen down the the bunny hole in an Alice in Wonderland, segment of that story here. But anyhow, Justin Trudeau, I'll just read you what he said. He said, on this day, this was on the Holocaust Remembrance Day, on this day we pay tribute to the memory of the millions of victims murdered during the Holocaust. He added, the Holocaust is a stark reminder of the dangers and risks of allowing hate, prejudice, and discrimination to spread unchallenged. It also reminds us that silence must never be an option when humanity is threatened. And so in the rest of the statement, what he said, he never mentioned the Jewish people once. So that it's just absolutely amazing that he said that. And I actually even read between the lines here, and I can see this is kind of a twisting of the so-called narrative of this. He is we know that he has Islamic, Islamists, Muslims very close to him in his government, and there's even one, Omar Al-Ghabra, who is actually he supports Hamas and Hezbollah. It's actually shocking, this guy's past and his resume when it comes to Israel and the Jews and Islamic terrorism. I'm going to call it Islamic Jihad. The terrorism, yes, but this is Islamic Jihad. It's against people, anybody who doesn't believe how they believe, and they want to kill them. So anyway, what he said, it's kind of a twisting of things, and it's kind of it's again moral equivalence of, well, hey, we could put the Muslims in there in that paragraph and say that, oh, well, if prejudice and, people because Justin Trudeau thinks right now that people are hating the Muslims and being prejudiced and discriminating. And so for me, I'm reading between the lines and saying, somebody else's, another name could be put in there, and we could make a moral equivalence kind of thing. So that's kind of how I'm reading this. It's kind of a twisted way of subtly saying to people, hey, just leave the Jews out of it, and we'll just change history here, kind of thing. And so anyway, I can't believe he's even saying this. And then it went on in this article. This article, what I'm reading from, is from the Toronto Sun. And then the writer went and said that the influential American magazine commentary, Jonathan S. Tobin, wrote that by issuing a statement on International Holocaust Memorial Day that made no mention of Jews as the victims of the Nazis, as well as articulating no connection between the need for remembrance and the preservation of Israel, Trudeau gave us a penetrating insight into his views about both history and the current crisis. So there, Jonathan Tobin says it like that, and he's kind of saying the same thing that I was saying, which is, there's a subtle twisting and trying to change history and to pander to the Islamic narrative, because as when I was talking to Damon about this, he said, you know, in Britain and other places, they're trying to drop the Holocaust history out of the schools where the Islamic children are going to school. So yeah, so that's what happened there. And then when Trudeau was he was called out on this, and he said that the statement he said it was incorrect, but he's adamant about keeping the statement the way it is on the website and not making changes to it. Um, so I'm just looking here. Yeah, it said, according to the Toronto Sun, the PMO said it took steps to correct this by putting out a tweet from Trudeau linking his statement and citing the importance of fighting anti-Semitism, plus issuing a statement from Foreign Affairs Minister Stéphane Dion. And to give Stéphane Dion credit, he actually did mention the Jewish people. He said that Dion prominently noted the death of the 6 million Jews in the Holocaust. Um, so anyway, yeah, that there in itself is very troubling, and um, we can see it more troubling things to come down the road.
Again, this is the Ari Lewis Show on Israel Sports News Radio. My guest is Leslie Ann Stoffel. We're talking about Justin Trudeau's comments and lack of comments regarding International Holocaust Remembrance Day. So let's talk a bit about your guess, because we don't know for sure why the Prime Minister made those statements or not made the statements he was supposed to, but what would be your guess? Why would he not mention the Jews on Holocaust Remembrance Day?
Well, again, I believe, this is my belief. I just believe that he's pandering to his Islamic base, to he's trying to twist the narrative. I hate that using that term, but in this case, he is turning this into a narrative, because he's taking facts and he's not using the facts. He's making it into a narrative that can be changed. And so, slowly people, these things start from the top down, where it's like propaganda. People's minds can slowly be changed, and the story can be changed, so that people will stop remembering what was the true story here, and leave the Jewish people out, and sideline them, and basically I think it's to pander to that Islamic population that he's pandering to. uh, that's my take on it.
All right. So, in the near future, how do the Jews in Canada respond when their prime minister leaves their religion, their group, out of the picture on Holocaust Remembrance Day?
Well, I don't think there's enough pushback against this kind of thing. Like, I believe that CIJA fought back against it. That's the Canadian Israel Jewish. I might not be getting that right. But anyway, CIJA is a big group. I think they pushed back against it, but I really don't think there's enough pushback. And I think we are back. I really hate to say this, but honestly, I think it's true. We are back in a time like it was in 1930s Germany, where the Jewish groups are not saying enough, and really, this kind of behavior from Trudeau, and plus with the added circumstance of bringing in all these so-called refugees from the Middle East, which really, as we know, that everybody's talked about this. They're not really refugees. It's a ploy to begin the Islamization of the West. Um, with this combined, it's just the handwriting is right there on the wall. It's not going to be safe for the Jewish people. I mean, it's not going to be safe for anybody who doesn't believe in Islam. But okay, because they go after Christians, they go after Sikhs, Baha'is, whoever. But really, the main target is the Jewish people. I mean, just look at Israel. Okay, the Jewish people in Israel have been a target of this since before the reconstitution of Israel. So we can see the handwriting on the wall that the Jewish people are not going to be safe in Canada. It's pretty clear. And it looks like we'll be in the same spot that we were back when people were fighting Hitler. As this fascism, this propaganda and this taking over of the so-called narrative, changing facts, trying to change history, it doesn't bode well at all. Not at all, to me, in my opinion.
All right, again, this is the Ari Lewis Show on Israel Sports News Radio, speaking with our North America correspondent Leslie Ann Stoffel about Justin Trudeau and some policies of Canada. Now, there is going to be a Senate voting in America regarding refugees that may potentially leave Canada to go to the United States. Is that correct?
Yeah, I saw this the other day on Facebook. There's a senatorial committee being set up that has been set up in the U.S. Because the U.S. are nervous about the thousands upon thousands of these so-called Syrian refugees that are being brought into Canada in such a fast way. There's like 25,000 are supposed to come in the next couple of months. And there is no way to vet these people properly, okay? So the Americans have got wind of this, and they're very nervous because, of course, when it comes to the Islamic Jihad, America is the great Satan. So where are these people going to head for? The first thing they're going to go over the border, and out there are long stretches of our border that aren't, that people can just walk through. It's very easy to get through. So the U.S. is very nervous about this, and they're having this special meeting, and apparently one of our somebody from our government has sent some letter saying, oh, it's all going to be fine and whatever, but they're still going to be holding this meeting and looking into this. Now, Robert Spencer wrote something about it, and he said it's interesting that they're, questioning Canada's refugees when they're not really questioning the ones that are going to be coming into the U.S. So anyway, that's a whole nother story as well. But I do find it interesting, and I'm actually kind of relieved that they're doing this because that the U.S. is doing this, because maybe it will start to put a bit of a pause on bringing all these people in, which many, many, many Canadians are very, very nervous about this, especially in light of what's come up recently, which are just one part of it is just all these rapes that have been happening all over Europe, and displacing Europeans from their homes to make room for the so-called refugees.
And part of the concern, obviously, is that the refugees, a certain portion of them, have ISIS connections. In fact, many of them have admitted to this. Is that correct?
Yes, that's true. Now, because we're not saying that all these people do. There are many of them that just do want a new life, and they'd love to just live their life like anybody else. But yeah, the Islamic State has said that they're going to put their fighters within these populations, and that part of it is a concern. The other part of it is that the the teachings of Islam do not don't work well with Western liberal democracies. We can see that. I mean, it's not even if somebody isn't an ISIS fighter, they still believe in the Islamic teachings, which don't give women rights, are anti-gay, anti-free speech, because you can't say anything that you don't agree with that they're doing in Islam, or else you're insulting Islam and their so-called prophet. So these things, it's a clash of civilizations when these people come and they don't want to live by Canadian laws. They perhaps there have been studies done that a lot of these people that come from these countries actually want to live under Sharia law, and it also makes it really hard for those Muslims that are secular, or they don't buy into the Sharia law, that the Muslims that do want to live in a Western democracy. It takes that away from them, and it takes it away from the Canadians here as well. So it's difficult for us to be able to, we want to maintain our Western liberal democracy when we're bringing in these people that don't agree and don't want to live with that. So that's a whole nother ball of wax that has to do with all this too.
Again, this is the Ari Lewis Show on Israel Sports and News Radio. If you're joining the program, go to the donate tab on the right side and make a donation. Leslie, let's talk a bit about a conference that apparently your Prime Minister, Justin Trudeau, did not want to take part of. Tell us a bit about what happened.
Oh, well, it wasn't that he didn't. Well, what happened was when he was first elected, and President Obama called him to, just to congratulate him, just a basic protocol sort of call. Justin Trudeau blurted out that he was going to be removing our planes from the bombing that they were doing to the Islamic State. He wasn't going to be involved in that anymore. And I guess a few other things have happened. And so just recently, the U.S. brought together the countries that are in the coalition to fight the Islamic State, and Canada was actually left out of this meeting. And it was very, very telling. Now we have a very respectable, the guy, he's liberal, of course, but I really respect him. Many do. He's a Sikh guy. And actually, I'm sorry, I forget his name right now. He's our new defense minister, but he has fought a couple of tours in Afghanistan, and he was on the Vancouver police force for like 20 years or something, and he's a really dynamic and competent guy. So he would have been the one going to this meeting, and he was left out of it. So our press, we have a very liberal press, and they don't really criticize Justin Trudeau at all. But some were balking at this, because this again, it puts Canada, it takes Canada from a position that it was seen in the world as a leader under Stephen Harper, a leader to fight against this sort of thing, fight against the Islamic Jihad, and to stand up for the freedoms of the West. And it sort of is it's symbolic as well that now Canada is taking more than a back seat on this and being completely left out of this meeting. So it was very, very disconcerting to us.
Again, this is the Ari Lewis Show on Israel Sports News Radio, joined by our North America correspondent, Leslie Ann Stoffel. A few more minutes with Leslie. So what do you think will happen in the short term, in the interim, with all this chaos going on? Will the refugees be allowed en masse to Canada? Will a lot of them end up escaping to North America? And will ISIS actually have their propaganda and their desires pushed forward because of all these actions by the Prime Minister?
Well, I'd like to say no. I'd like to say, oh, you know, the rational thought will prevail, but I really don't think it will, because perhaps with this senatorial committee meeting, this might be a light at the end of the tunnel and not a train coming at us. This might be a light at the end of the tunnel saying, and it might put a bit of a kibosh on this. I, I I don't know. I hope so. If it doesn't, and if we watch the trends that are going on within Europe and within the leaders who are like Justin Trudeau, who have um, no morals and uh, they don't even care about maintaining our Western civilization. I see the same things happening in Europe that are happening that I see the same things happening here that are happening in Europe, and I see the Jewish population here and also other people who don't believe in Islam becoming targets of violence and rape and all these really terrible things. If we see the trends, if we see how it goes, I think it probably will go in that direction. We're going to do our best to fight it. I mean, I have now become Pamela Geller. I don't know if you know her. She's a real freedom fighter and a counter jihadist. She's been doing it for years, and I've been kind of in contact with her over Facebook over the years because I post her stuff all the time. So she asked if we needed a Canadian Stop the Islamization of Canada group on Facebook. So I'm now the leader of that here. So we'll see. It's on Facebook if anybody wants to join it. You don't have to be Canadian to join it. And we're just trying to scramble ourselves together here and do what we can to try to stem the tide of this, so that so hopefully we're not in the same problem that they are in Europe. So we're going to do our best to try to curb it. That's all we can do. They don't really seem to listen, but we're going to try and do our best.
All right, you've been making the radio circuit, not just my show. You were on another program recently, correct?
Yeah, Damon Rosen, who he used to, well, he works for the United West. He has me on his show quite often now. He's on the Jihad Radio Network on Blog Talk Radio. I'm on his show quite often. And and Kel Fritzy, she's also a Canadian counter jihadist. She has a show with the English Defense League and and also she's on the Jihad Radio Network as well. So she's had me on her show too. So a lot of us are trying to group together and speak out and share information and encourage each other to keep going and fight this fight, because like I said earlier, it's not just for us that we need to have a safe place. Not just we want to keep our Western democracy intact, for a safe place for us that have lived in this our whole lives, but we also want to have a safe place for the Muslims that don't want to live under Sharia law. They want to come to a place where they're not having to live under the the apartheid against women and all this crazy stuff. So there you go.
All right, and before we go, tell everyone out there, tell my listeners where people could find out more about you and your work.
Okay, well, I'm on Facebook and Twitter under Real Clear Israel, and also my name, Leslie Ann Stoffel. So I have two pages on Facebook and then Twitter. But everything you can find all my social networking and articles, blogs, and postings and everything at therealclearisrael.org. That's my webpage. Because and people say, why call it therealclearisrael.org when you're, when it's not all about Israel? But you see, it's the bigger picture is that it is all about Israel. Because Israel's been, I started the page because I was speaking out against the Islamic Jihad on Israel, and now we're all of us are fighting it and needing to stand up for ourselves against that. So that's the meaning behind that, and that's where they can find me.
All right, sounds good. Great stuff. Leslie Ann Stoffel breaking down on the program, The Ari Lewis Show on Israel Sports News Radio. Again, if you like what you heard, you like the fact that we're not bowing down to corporate media or other influences, you can send a donation to help out the program on the right side of the website, IsraelSportsNewsRadio.com. Leslie, thank you for being on the program. Thank you, everyone, for listening. Be well, God bless, and shalom from Israel.